I'm going to chat with you. They asked me to chat about what's going on in the workplace today, especially on the hiring side of things. And I'm going to get to that with some detail on how to reach out, nurture, engage, land, and retain people. But before that, I do want to chat with you about the conversations I'm having in the marketplace about the DE&I initiatives going on. And as Mike said, we're preaching to the converted here. And I've been surrounded by some really bright people who have opened my eyes and enlightened me into areas that I should be considering as we go through this. And in the room here, you're not part of the problem, but you're part of the solution. The marketplace, and I've had hundreds of thousands of phone calls, personal phone calls with people as a headhunter, executives, C-suite, on down to first year out of school. And sometimes they feel like they're part of the problem because of the way they're spoken to. So that's really important to understand. DE&I in the marketplace is change management. And you just don't show up at a seminar on a weekend, talk about a subject, go back Monday and expect that lesson to be truly embedded and pulled apart and examined for better understanding. And I thought Lamont did an unbelievable job this morning on the MedTech Color Breakfast. There were so many lessons learned there as well. So I think it's important as leaders that we continue to let people know that they are part of the solution and not the problem. That's an important start. DE&I is also an incredibly complex undertaking. It's not easy to just have a pithy definition of what it is. Does inequality always infer discrimination? Is it structural inequality exclusively? And when we do include some, who else do we exclude? Those are the questions that come up on calls and interviews with individuals in the marketplace. On these subjects, I'm not going to offer you solutions, but you still need to understand that the people you're chatting with every single day in your community, in your organization, in the interview process, don't quite understand how to approach potential solutions. And then the answers, equality of outcomes or equality of opportunity. That's a sticky one, because sometimes the equality of outcomes seems unfair to one party. And most people can understand the equality of opportunity. That's the challenging part. How do you level the playing field, remove the barriers across the playing field? And then as Mike pointed out, if it's not integrated, it's not going to work for the P&L and the parties. We need to always serve a hierarchy of competency in our businesses. Because once you start to trade away a hierarchy of competency, the entire organization loses. So those are questions that you've got to ask yourself, understand are being asked in the community. We have to do a better job of educating people. In a capitalist society, it survives on inequality. Think about that for a second. It must have an inequality about it. Example, a parent, a child of yours, has an illness and has to go in for surgery. Do you want the best possible surgeon selected to be working on that child or that parent? Or do you want one that was there for another reason? The best engineers, we want them designing the devices that save lives. We want to pay them. We want to put them in preferred positions. We want to reward them for doing the things that we cannot do. Now, the effort needs to come from how do we level the playing field. Let me give you an example I just went into the other day. I had a client call me looking for a CFO. I went through the whole spec with them. And at the end of the conversation, they said, oh, by the way, everybody knows what's coming next. We'd want to make sure that on the slate, we have a person of color. And most search firms will go, yep, got it. We're going to go out there and get you the best athlete, first and foremost. And if one of them happens to be a person of color, awesome. but we're just going to get you that. The better answer would have been, and this is what's hard in MedTech, and we know this, a good search firm will make 1,000 phone calls on a search to get you your slate. And if you sample the MedTech industry, there's a very low percentage, hence the word underrepresented. But let's make it people of color in that CFO cohort. So what is the likelihood of me finding that if I don't put in the extra effort and take advantage of the pipelines that we have, like a MedTech color, where I can call up Kwame and say, Kwame, I got a CFO. If I just make the standard effort out into the marketplace and I don't over-index in, the odds of me continuing to have the opportunity to push that initiative forward is near zero. So there's an obligation that each of us have in our business, in the search business. It is joining forces, getting alliances. So it is a disproportional candidate pool that is underrepresented that we're adding to our activities. So line that up with your activities and what you're trying to execute in your organization. Also this morning, AdvaMed, they've got a Delta team here. Kwame called out the MedTech color team. Those are force multipliers. In a normal distribution of an organization, you've got A, B, and C players. There's a fascinating law out there called Price's Law. I'm taking you now into what's going on in the marketplace and how you need to start thinking about talking to individuals in the marketplace. Price's Law. If you take the number of individuals in a company, the square root of that, they do 50% of the work in the company. If you have a 10-person company, 3 people are doing 50% of the work. We all know those startups. If it turns into a 100-person company, 10 people are doing 50% of the work, and the other 90, the other 50%. Then it really starts to get interesting when you get to a 1,000-person company. You got roughly 30 people doing 50% of the work. Those are called your force multipliers. I started that statement saying in a normal distribution, what you want to do is you want to start figuring out your strategy on how do you talk to the market for your force multipliers. The classic way you've been talking to the market no longer works. The HR people in here and the hiring managers in here know that. You probably have noticed the most challenging market in my 32 years in the MedTech industry right now. It's because you do not understand how to talk to the new market. What's happening in these organizations is incompetence grows at an exponential rate and competence grows at a linear rate because of that Price Law. That's incredibly scary, not just on the upside, but the downside. Because if you start losing 1 or 2 or 3 force multipliers in a 100-person company, bad things start to happen. So how do we get more force multipliers on our team? Another principle, Matthew principle. To those who have more, more will come. To those who have less, more will be taken from. Nothing holds truer in a capitalist society. We all have been part of organizations that have done extraordinarily well, and once we get on that roll, the good things continue to come, and it's not just karma. Success attracts more opportunities, but on the flip side, failure, ongoing failure, will accelerate you down into a place it's hard to get off your back foot. McKinsey put out an interesting slide recently, and I would say this holds really true. On the reasons for quitting between 21 and 22, and if you look at the first 4, career development, inadequate total comp, uncaring, uninspiring leaders, and lack of meaningful work, and it goes on from there. This has changed quite a bit over the years, but especially now. And this is the difference between careers and jobs. We're talking about careers today, not jobs. Architecting careers. Here's another way that they represented the data from a retention and attraction perspective. On the high value qualities and the low value qualities. So here's the answer that every individual is asking when you get on the phone with them, when you interview them, when you reach out in the marketplace. When I come to work in your company, who will I become and why will I become that? If you're not able to answer that in the very first interview, and if each of your hiring managers don't have that in their mind while they're going through the interview process with the individual, you're not allowing yourself to be at an advantage. Attracting people into the marketplace. There's a strategy we developed a couple of years ago called hum, sing, and shout. We created this because it's easy to remember. Your hum should be on 24 hours a day. Your sing is a louder signal, a higher amplitude, lower frequency. And then your shout is an ultimately high amplitude and a lower frequency. It's easier to digest in that slide right there. As you're speaking to the marketplace, developing your hiring brand, developing your nurturing strategy to the candidates, the individuals that you want in the marketplace, you've got to have a hum, sing, shout strategy on 24/7 if you want to attract the force multipliers. The force multipliers have their head down, they're doing work. They are not answering posts, they're not answering job descriptions. What they do is they work their network. And once in a while, you can get their attention with a hiring brand and attention awareness strategy. And that's a long story happening out on the LinkedIn platform right now, as well as Facebook, and even the advanced organizations are using Instagram, all for different strategies though. You can't repeat the three on all three platforms. But the dialogue has to be taking place all the time if you want the force multipliers. If you keep doing what you're doing, you will continue to get the normal distribution of A, B, and C players. But we've all worked with organizations that have an overabundance of force multipliers. And then, therefore, because of the Matthew principle, you attract more force multipliers. So what's your message to the market? Your message to the market is 4 pillars. The first is the market that you're playing in independent of the product or service you offer. When an individual comes into your organization for an interview, you need to explain to them why the market you're in has any relevance at all over the next 5 to 7 years on what the emerging job market is. So what are the skills they're going to be learning in your organization relative to the market you're in. The fast follow on that is, why is your product or service salient to the market that is promising? Every single one of your hiring managers ought to have these 4 pillars in front of them as they subtly sell the marketplace. And then the team. Who are the people I'm going to be working with that are making the product that's addressing the market that has promise over the next 5 to 7 years? And then finally, the mission is important. I know what you make, but tell me why you show up and make it every day. That's what attracts a lot of us to MedTech. I don't think there's any industry that doesn't outpay us in the tech sector. So most of the people who come into this sector are doing it for more than a single paycheck. So let's look at a couple personas that you need to be hypersensitive to. And the first one here is the most important one because it's the pipeline for DE&I especially. But let's look at this first persona, the new grad. He or she is getting out of university and they're generally saddled with pretty substantial debt. So they make their general decision on what is going to pay them the most money that they can start paying down their school loans. But there's another thing that happens, is the notoriety of the company they're going to work for. So if I'm a new grad and I'm coming out of university and I've been being nurtured by the Googles, the Metas, the Facebooks, the Deloittes, the E&Ys, and I'm at a party with my buds, where are you going to work? Are you going to go to work there, or are you going to be making Foley catheters and ostomy bags? And I say that tongue in cheek. So when you are speaking to that cohort, It's about prestige and headlines. Think about bending your message as you attract talent there. How are you going to thread that through the 4 pillars to that individual? And are you speaking to the university candidate in their sophomore year? Or are you waiting for their senior year to start your nurturing campaign, which is usually a 30 or 60-day sprint, because leadership said, where are we on our university? And by the way, all of this should not fall in HR's lap. This is not an HR function. HR and recruiting are 2 entirely different DNAs. HR is supposed to be taking care of the person in the organization, part of the family already. The recruiting function should be independent. Somewhere about 50 years ago, leadership put it in there and said, put the ad in the paper, somebody handle the resumes, sounds like you take care of people. In today's environment, if your recruiting effort is in HR, you are at an incredible disadvantage. This is where it gets worse with the new graduate. MedTech is an incredibly insular environment. We know this. Every single one of our job descriptions on the career side, they'll say Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, IDE, PMA, 510K, must have the experience, product development, software, obviously Reg Clin, even marketing, or domain experience. So you get this college grad who doesn't come into MedTech because they don't know about it. Suddenly in their 30s or late 20s, they realize there's more to life than keeping you on a puppy video for 44 seconds on Facebook. And they say, I want to do something different, or something happened in their family, in their life, a health scare. And they got drawn to our industry. And they knock on the door. And we say, I'm sorry, you don't fit our must-haves or requirements. And then, if you're a person of color and you look around at our community, nobody looks like you. So we're losing the pipeline on the new grads at an alarming rate right now. That conversation, I hate to say this, is like the credit card companies back in the day, like the cigarette companies. They went after them early because they wanted them as a lifelong customer. Same strategy. Next persona, the OG. Comes into the office 5 days a week, loves it there. In fact, doesn't understand why everybody else is not there 5 days a week. And what do they want? Their message needs to revolve around career development, compensation, and meaningful work. Those are the top 3. The next one is your family first. Wants flexibility in the workplace, and it's been available now since January of 2020, and it's not going away. They can flex, and they deserve to. Flexibility, career development, meaningful work, health and well-being. You're seeing how all these messages are different? How about the work from none of your business? Otherwise known as WFX. As long as I'm getting my work done, it shouldn't matter where I live, and you shouldn't pay me any different because I'm in Open Zipper, Iowa instead of San Fran. What do they want? Autonomy, meaningful work, compensation, and well-being. And then here is where you have the biggest liability in every single one of your companies right now. Your managers, because I talk to them every day, are at risk of even leaving the industry. Why? Well, first of all, the C-suite primarily is dealing with strategy, leading from the front, doesn't manage people, and are managing future threats and future opportunities. On the other side of the sandwich are the individual contributors who do things and tasks. That was fine when we were able to work together. But now we've got the managers in the middle. And the managers used to have, one of their superpowers was collaboration and pulling people together, all in the same room. The managers could run down the hallway and go to the C-suite and the leadership team, and then run down to the QA floor and get things solved. That was their superpower. That's been taken away. And they haven't been trained, And there hasn't been an answer on how to live in Zoom zombie land. And they're dealing with these cold two-dimensional screens and getting challenges with some of the people who have become bubble wrapped and begging for them to come back into the organization. What are we going to do about them? The managers are the biggest risk right now in every single organization across our industry. Look, none of these personas are wrong. They are who they are. But how are you talking to them to make them know you even exist, nurture them, eventually get them to come into your organization, interview, land the job, and then retain them? Let me give you a starting point. I'll finish here. And I'll leave you with this, because you have to start from somewhere. I've given you the challenges, but I'm going to give you the very first place to start. By the way, before I get into that, I've always said that a CEO's bonus should be directly tied to the hiring brand of their organization. And then you'll get their attention, because rewards drive behavior. Hiring brand of your organization should have a reasonable impact on the C-suite's bonus. So I get job descriptions. And I would bet that everybody sitting in their job description, somewhere on it says must have and previous experience must. They're asks. Every single job description coming out of your organization is an ask. What if it started out like this? Dear future potential customer. Yes, your future employee is a potential customer. Because if they get lousy service, they're going to take their business somewhere else. But dear future potential customer, our company values the present you and the future you. Let me tell you what we do. And that should be important to you. Because what we make and the service we provide should give you relevant experience for the future version of you. So that's what we do. How we do it also should matter to you. Because we want you to know that you'll learn and increase your value in the market so you can ask for more money, more opportunity, and more flexibility, however you define it. Let me explain who you will work with, because your mom and dad were right. Who you hang out with is who you'll become. And maybe more importantly, it will inform your future network, which is probably one of the most important career assets you can have. And then why we do it. It's the reason we show up every day. If you're not a lot happier and fulfilled, a majority of the time than not, then we're failing at what we do. But this is what we do. This is why we do it. And we know you're only going to stay here for 4 years. In your job description, in your interview, I know you're only going to stay here 4 years, statistically speaking, and that's all right. And I do want you to look back on your career here as the best 4 years you've ever had. That is our goal. And if we do a really good job, you might stay longer. If this resonates with you as an individual, as a candidate, give us a call, see if we fit you. That's your message to the marketplace. Thank you.